After one unexpected night, she tried to quit, but his incredible love changed everything forever. Emma stepped into the neon glow of the diner, her scrubs still clinging to her like a second skin soaked in exhaustion. The familiar smell of burnt coffee and greasy fries felt like a warm embrace after an endless shift at the hospital. Tonight had been brutal, another onslaught of trauma cases, another string of countless family struggles playing out behind ICU doors, and each frantic heartbeat echoing in her ears. She needed a moment to breathe, to forget. "Coffee?" the waitress asked, her tone a mix of weariness and pity. Emma barely nodded, letting the heaviness pull her into a booth in the corner. She took a deep breath, trying to dismiss the nagging guilt that gnawed at her insides. But guilt clung tighter than her scrubs, a constant reminder that while she worked late into the night, families struggled. There were so many demands placed on her heart, mothers terrified of losing their children, fathers burdened by hospital bills that threatened their very existence. "Am I enough?" she questioned yet again, thoughts spiraling. Just as she swirled the last of the coffee in her cup, the bell over the door jingled. He walked in. Mark, the new doctor from the hospital, with an aura that shifted the atmosphere around him. He caught her eye and smiled, and for the first time that night, Emma felt a spark of something beyond bitterness. They began exchanging words, casual and flowing, but as they delved deeper, Emma could feel the familiar frustration bubbling back to the surface. "You know, it's maddening how some patients fall through the cracks," Mark said, his voice laced with passion. "Everyone deserves care, Emma. It shouldn't be a privilege." His words landed heavily in her chest. "Yeah, but what can we do?" she sighed, shaking her head. "I'm just a nurse. I don't change the system." But as he spoke, wind from his dreams filled her with an unfamiliar warmth. Was it possible that she didn't have to be invisible? That there was more to her life than endless night shifts and heartache? Before she realized it, Emma's frustration spilled out. "I've sacrificed so much care, and it feels like no one notices," she murmured, voice thick with emotion. She feared the weight of her own words, staring into the depths of her own despair. Doubts raced through her mind, chaotic and relentless. What if I quit? The thought flashed like lightning, startling and powerful. She dismissed it immediately, but the seed was planted. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But now, the pressure was palpable. The allure of fleeting escape danced tantalizingly close, promising an end to the exhaustion. Yet, her heart thrummed at the mention of a young girl battling cancer back at the hospital. Emma couldn't abandon that child, couldn't abandon the fight she'd started. Mark held her gaze, light and determination swirling in his eyes, urging her to rise from the ashes of her own despondency. She felt torn, the fabric of her convictions fraying as she contemplated the next steps. Leaving felt wrong, but fighting the deeply rooted injustices at the hospital could cost her everything. With a trembling hand, she reached across the table, fingers brushing against Mark's. There was a fire igniting inside her, a flicker of possibility, even as shadows closed in around their small world. Would she choose to dive into a fight that could cost her stability and safety, or succumb to the wave of fear that suggested she remain quiet? The air was thick with impossibility, yet she clung to hope while her heartbeat echoed a wish for change. Would this moment set the course for everything to come? Emma leaned in, an electric tension wielding destiny in a single glance. The weight of Emma's internal turmoil rose as if the very air around her swirled with expectation. Mark's gentle touch ignited a shift within her, igniting a longing not only for love but for a more profound purpose. Emma clenched her fists on the table, her thumb tracing the ridges of her scrubs. Deep breaths in tandem with the echoing hum of the diner made her heart race. Was she truly willing to risk everything she'd built in pursuit of something so transitory as change? "Emma." Mark's voice brought her back from the precipice. The sincerity in his eyes was carefully placed, each beat steadying her fraying threads of resolve. What if we worked together, advocating for patients, making their voices heard? Imagine the impact we could make. The proposition resonated almost elegantly within her, the edges smoothing against her fear. She caught herself imagining late-night meetings, strategizing over cases that had slipped through the cracks. But with each flash of exhilaration came the darkness of doubt that followed her like a shadow. I don't know if I can tackle the system's failures. It's overwhelming. Overwhelming is worth tackling if it means fighting for those who can't fight for themselves, Mark challenged, leaning forward. His fierce passion stood as a beacon against her doubt. Those words sparked something deep within her, a flicker of resolve. Emma pictured the young girl she had just mentioned, her fragile frame dwarfed by the hospital bed. The girl's laughter, hidden beneath layers of pain, sprang to life within her mind. But what if I fail? Emma's voice wavered, uncertainty wrapping around her like a dark cloak. The fear was terrifying, yet it also stirred something challenging inside her. What if, just this once, she refused to stay stagnant? Failure is just a stepping stone, Mark said empathetically, shattering her hesitation. Every time we try, we grow. It's about impact, not perfection. Emma felt her heart quicken, not just with fear, but with a poignant pulse of hope that warmed her chest. She envisioned a life where she didn't feel like a mere cog in the wheel, a life where her voice could resonate beyond the sterile confines of hospital walls, where she could inspire change instead of merely maintaining it. Could she become the champion those faceless families required? Her yearning for validation surfacing, she realized she couldn't keep living in despair. I want to try, Emma whispered, a quiet resolve settling over her like a warm blanket. But I need to learn. I'm not a leader. I'm just a nurse who cares deeply, Mark interjected. His gaze lingered, full of understanding and encouragement. That's more than enough to begin. Together we can figure it out. His support cracked through the last barriers around her heart. Emma felt the stirrings of ambition and an unquenchable thirst for more. She wasn't just capable of caring for patients, but of advocating for them. As determination mounted, the digital clock on the diner wall ticked steadily. Each passing second was a reminder of the path that lay ahead. It was time for her to channel that passion into action, to face the complexities of her position head-on. The journey might be perilous, but at least she would no longer continue on it alone. And just like that, a new chapter in her life began to unfurl, a quest to find her voice and elevate others along the way. Yet, as excitement filled the void with each heartbeat, a sliver of fear intertwined with her ambition. The hospital she had known was a fortress of bureaucratic shadows, and behind each wall lay unseen battles. The moment of truth became palpable, leaving her teetering on the edge of a cliff, staring down into the unknown. What challenges awaited her as she moved beyond her comfort zone? Would she be able to gather the courage needed to break the silence that had confined her for too long? Emma's heart raced as they exchanged hopeful glances, understanding that the fight was just beginning. Emma parked her car in the hospital lot, her heart pounding with a cocktail of anticipation and anxiety. The morning sun streamed through the windshield, illuminating her face, yet the warmth felt distant against the chill of uncertainty. Today was the day she'd present her ideas to the committee, a critical first step toward advocating for the patients she so deeply cared about. The gravity of the moment settled in her bones as she stepped out of the car. Navigating the busy corridors, Emma's mind raced. She replayed Mark's encouraging words, his belief in her capabilities acting like a shield against the barrage of self-doubt. Even so, the intricacies of hospital politics loomed in her mind like a storm cloud. What if the committee rejected her ideas? What if they ridiculed her passion? Each thought tugged at her, but she pushed them aside, resolving to focus on what mattered most, the patients and their stories. Inside the conference room, she was met with familiar faces, some interested, others bored. As Emma settled into her seat, she glanced around, observing each member's expression, searching for a spark of sympathy or understanding. The chatter dwindled, and she felt the spotlight shift onto her as she stood to present her initiative. "Thank you all for your time," she began, forcing her voice to stay steady. "I'm here to propose a patient advocacy program that aims to empower voices often unheard in our system." The words flowed out of her with conviction, but even as she spoke, she anticipated the skepticism that would soon follow. As she outlined her plan, she noticed a committee member, Dr. Lawson, furrowing his brow. His reputation for being critical couldn't be ignored. "Emma," he interrupted, "this seems a bit idealistic. How do you plan to implement such a program without significant resources? Our budget is stretched thin as it is." His question was a blow, cutting through her fervor. She stuttered to find a response, the familiar weight of doubt crashing back over her like a tidal wave. But then she recalled Mark's words about the importance of impact over perfection. This wasn't merely an idea, it was a necessity. While we face budget constraints, I believe small changes can lead to significant differences, she replied, the tremor in her voice diminishing with each word. We can partner with community organizations, leverage existing staff commitments, and utilize our patients' and families' experiences to guide our approach. Several committee members exchanged glances, some nodding in reluctant acknowledgement. Integrating patients into our care approach could offer valuable insights, chimed in another committee member. Their support shifted Emma's heart from uncertainty to cautious hope. Gradually, she began to envision a path forward, a series of incremental steps that could ignite the flame of change. But the moment was fleeting. As the discussion continued, Emma felt tensions rising among committee members, doubts resurfacing amid their discourse. Would this proposal fracture the already fragile cohesion of their team? Determined to break through the cynicism, Emma steeled herself. She knew she couldn't let fear dictate her decisions any longer. She began to outline concrete steps, leveraging metaphors from her nursing practice. Every plan needed a foundation, a support system, just like every patient required a care team. The room grew still as she spoke, her words now pouring forth with a newfound confidence. Yet, behind that confidence loomed the reality of resistance. Emma sensed the weight of the committee's collective uncertainty, the worries that change would invite chaos and unrest. The conversation shifted, the mood becoming more contentious as Dr. Lawson raised concerns about potential backlash from staff who might oppose her initiatives. What if this wasn't just a matter of proposing a plan, but confronting deeply ingrained fears of inadequacy and failure? Emma frowned, realizing she must rise above. This was more than a proposal. It was a declaration of her commitment to transformation, not just for patients, but for herself. As the meeting adjourned, Emma felt invigorated, yet drained. The glimmers of possibility lingered, but so did the doubts. Could she find allies among her colleagues, or would they remain indifferent to the plight of their patients? The battle for her vision had only just begun. With questions swirling in her mind, Emma stepped into the fluorescent-lit hallway, her thoughts igniting a sense of urgency. She needed to reach out, to gather support, build a network of advocates within the hospital. Collaborations, she realized, were key. And as she prepared for her next move, a flicker of determination burgeoned within her. She was ready to confront not only the systemic challenges, but also her hidden fears. The only question that remained was, who among her colleagues would she engage next in this fight for voice and purpose? The corridors of the hospital buzzed with activity, but Emma felt an ache of loneliness beneath the chaos. Each step echoed her resolve, yet uncertainty gnawed at her core. She needed to harness the momentum from the committee meeting. But who would truly stand beside her? Her mind raced as she considered her options. She thought of Dr. Martinez, always advocating for patient-centered care, and the way she compassionately listened to families. Their occasional conversations had revealed a shared passion for improving patient experiences. But would Dr. Martinez be willing to take a stand alongside her? Emma's fingers brushed against her mobile phone, contemplating whether to reach out or take a more personal approach. Ignoring her impulse to overthink, Emma navigated the maze of patients and staff until she reached Dr. Martinez's office. The door was slightly ajar, the sound of typing punctuating the air. Taking a deep breath, Emma knocked lightly, entering when invited. "Emma, what can I do for you?" Dr. Martinez looked up, her face lighting up in a way that suggested genuine interest. "I wanted to discuss my patient advocacy proposal," Emma began, feeling a rush of vulnerability. Each word felt monumental as they hung in the air between them. "I think this could truly transform our care model, but I need support. I need allies. I was hoping you might consider getting involved." Dr. Martinez leaned back in her chair, expression contemplative. "It's a big step," she said slowly. "What do you think our biggest challenges will be?" Emma paused, recognizing that this was as much about her doubts as it was about the project. "Resistance, without a doubt. Many of our colleagues may view this as time-consuming or unnecessary, but the patients, they deserve a voice." As she spoke, she felt an unexpected swell of passion. "That's the spirit," Dr. Martinez nodded, a small smile emerging. "Change is never easy, but I admire your commitment. Let's brainstorm ways to get the necessary support." As they began to sketch out a plan, Emma's initial weariness faded into shared enthusiasm. They penned ideas, tangible steps, and created a roadmap of potential allies within the hospital. Emma felt competent, realizing that the intricate play of politics could be navigated with collaborative strength rather than solitary charge. However, amidst this surge of excitement, lurking shadows of doubt still lingered. Would their colleagues embrace this initiative, or would Emma's fears materialize in public disapproval? When they discussed potential metrics, Dr. Martinez's inquiries led Emma deeper into self-reflection, forcing her to confront her motivations. "Why this particular advocacy?" Dr. Martinez asked, lifting an eyebrow. "What drives you?" Emma stilled, the question a mirror reflecting her inner truths. "I've seen patients struggle to communicate their needs. I've felt their frustration firsthand, and I can't just stand by." An almost visceral urgency underlined her assertion. This fight was as much personal as it was professional. She was determined to honor their voices. Dr. Martinez nodded, a shimmer of understanding passing between them. "You are on to something, Emma. It's not just about changing policies, it's about building relationships, trust. That's the foundation we need." Empowered, Emma felt the pulse of their emerging alliance. Yet, as they strategized their next steps, the complex terrain ahead loomed large. The path to garnering support wasn't merely a logistical challenge, but a crucible for her own resilience. Would Emma be able to confront the entrenched practices and beliefs that fostered silence and complacency? On the brink of this profound undertaking, Emma recognized that the very act of embracing change, both within her world and herself, was fraught with uncertainty. Would her evolving vision be powerful enough to galvanize those around her? With newfound resolve, she exited Dr. Martinez's office, prepared for the daunting journey ahead. The hospital buzzed around her, but she felt different, focused, energized. The next conversation could lead them closer to their goals, or reveal the depths of resistance yet unseen. But even as she felt the stirrings of optimism, a disquiet lingered within her, a mix of readiness and uncharted fears. Perhaps the most crucial dialogues were yet to come, and with each interaction, both her personal and professional stakes would rise higher. Who would be the next challenge to her vision? Emma's heart quickened with a blend of excitement and trepidation as she formulated her next moves. The time had come to face the critics, head on. Emma stepped into the bustling hospital cafeteria, the clatter of dishes and low murmurs of conversations washing over her like a wave, momentarily engulfing her in the familiar chaos of everyday life. She approached the coffee counter, her mind still tangled with uncertainties from her last meeting. The discussions with Dr. Martinez had ignited a small flame of hope, but lingering dread whispered questions in her ear. What if her voice wasn't enough? As she sipped her coffee, she scanned the room, watching her colleagues interact. She sensed the undercurrents of camaraderie, yet felt like an outsider. Every laugh shared and every shared experience echoed her solitude. The thought struck hard. If she was to advocate for change, she had to break through this insulation keeping her apart. Determined to shed her hesitations, Emma approached Tom, a senior physician known for his steadfast adherence to established protocols. Although he was a respected figure, she had witnessed his dismissive attitude towards potential changes. Heart pounding, she introduced the idea behind her advocacy proposal, watching as his brow furrowed. "What do you mean patients need a voice? They rely on us to know what's best for them," he countered, crossing his arms defensively. Emma felt a wave of frustration rise. This was precisely the mindset she aimed to change. "But it's not about undermining our expertise," she responded, forcing steadiness into her voice. "It's about integrating their experiences into our care. Their insights can enrich our understanding of their needs and enhance our practices." Tom glanced away, contemplating her words, and for a moment, Emma thought she saw a flicker of curiosity. "And how do you propose we measure the impact of this involvement?" She seized the opportunity. "That's part of what I want to develop, a way to gather feedback and correlate it with patient outcomes. We can't just rely on what we assume is best. We have to listen." For the first time, she noticed a hint of respect break through his skepticism. "All right, I'll give you that much, but convincing others will not be easy," he warned, his voice laden with resignation. "I know, but if we don't try, we risk stagnation. Would you at least consider championing the idea?" The suggestion hung in the air, and a mixture of doubt and intrigue settled between them. Emma left that conversation with a renewed sense of purpose, but also a nagging sense of reality. One conversation wasn't enough to overturn ingrained skepticism. Yet she understood that this foundational exchange was critical. It wasn't just about gaining support, but stepping into a role that challenged her own preconceived notions about authority and influence. The more she engaged in these tough dialogues, the stronger and more resolute she felt. With each attempt to connect with her colleagues, Emma realized she was reshaping not only the potential path to success for her proposal, but also her understanding of her own capabilities. She had been reluctant to confront her peers, fearing ridicule and dismissal, yet now she sensed a path towards establishing a reciprocal relationship that could drive genuine empathy and collaboration. Each small victory sparked her determination, yet she was distinctly aware of the impending hurdles. As she re-entered the busy corridors, her resolve was tempered by understanding. She would need to confront the very structures that had fostered apathy. Could she do this? Later that evening, Emma sat at her desk, reviewing notes and planning her next steps. The weight of her aspirations filled the room, but as she prepared for bed, doubt crept back into her mind. Would the effort she put forth withstand the pushback she anticipated? Amidst her swirling thoughts, her phone lit up with a message. It was Dr. Martinez. "Let's discuss your next moves. The conversation is just beginning." A small spark of hope reignited within Emma, compelling her to dive deeper into her preparations. As she drifted into sleep, the shadows of self-doubt loomed closer, questioning if she was truly prepared for the chaos this advocacy might ignite. Did she dare to confront the silent resistance ahead, or would she falter before her vision could take root? The morning brought a crispness to the air that invigorated Emma as she made her way to the hospital. The weight of uncertainty lingered, but she felt a surge of determination coursing through her. Today would be different. She had a meeting scheduled with Dr. Martinez to discuss actionable steps for her advocacy proposal, a moment she had envisioned countless times, yet it always felt daunting. As she stepped into his office, the familiar scent of coffee wafted through the air, accompanied by the barely noticeable hum of hospital life outside. Dr. Martinez looked up, an encouraging smile breaking across his face. "Emma, good to see you. Let's get to work." The conversation flowed seamlessly at first. They engaged in a robust discussion about potential strategies to implement the proposal, with Dr. Martinez offering useful insights and reframing her ideas into feasible actions. However, as the meeting wore on, a nagging concern gripped Emma. Would these strategies be enough to persuade the skeptics? The hospital's culture, steeped in tradition, often resisted new ideas. Sensing her unease, Dr. Martinez paused, his gaze fixed on her. "You look worried. What's on your mind?" Emma hesitated, her heart racing. I fear that the pushback from colleagues might undermine everything we plan. I don't want to let you down, or the patients." Dr. Martinez leaned back in his chair, contemplating. "Emma, change is never easy, but think about the patients. You have to stay focused on why you started this." His words resonated deeply, reminding her of her core motivation, even in the face of adversity. She nodded, feeling a flicker of resolve spring to life. After the meeting, she reflected on their conversation, understanding that this advocacy was also about her growth. With renewed commitment, Emma planned her next steps. She would gather data to support her proposal, systematizing the feedback she intended to collect from patients. This strategy might equip her with the evidence necessary to sway even the staunchest of opponents. Over the next week, Emma observed her colleagues more closely, trying to identify their perspectives. She started informal conversations, asking questions about their practices and experiences. Surprisingly, some colleagues expressed their frustrations with the existing protocols. This common ground provided Emma with insight. She could shape her proposal to not only address patient concerns, but also reflect the physician's needs for better communication and cooperation. With each conversation, Emma's confidence grew. She began to see herself not merely as an advocate, but as an integral contributor to the collaborative environment she yearned to create. However, she also recognized that some individuals remained entrenched in their beliefs, including Tom, who exhibited visible discomfort at even the mention of her approach. Feeling emboldened, she scheduled another meeting with him, determined to address his hesitations directly. Emma entered the room, fully prepared. "Tom," she began, "I appreciate your honesty about your concerns. I think we share a common goal, to provide the best possible care. What would help you feel more comfortable with the idea of involving patients in their own care?" Tom crossed his arms, his skepticism evident. "Patients don't always know what's best for them, Emma. They can complicate things." His dismissal sparked a fire within her. But what if their experiences can lead to better outcomes? Have we considered the frustration of not being heard? What if the changes could improve our processes? The challenge hung in the air, and Emma watched as Tom slowly uncrossed his arms, his guards momentarily lowering. "You have a point," he conceded cautiously. She left the meeting invigorated, realizing that she had finally managed to make an impact, however small. The contrast in her nervousness of earlier days was staggering. With each challenging conversation, she was honing her skills of persuasion and empathy, embodying the change she sought for the hospital. Now the next stage beckoned, a presentation before the board. Time was running short. She needed to gather her data and refine her approach. Feelings of determination battled against the looming dread of the impending confrontation with the institutional authority. But as Emma prepared her notes, the nagging voice of doubt whispered again. Would they truly listen? She steadied herself, remembering Dr. Martinez's words. Deep down, she recognized that this was more than pursuing a professional milestone. It was an essential step toward her own transformation. And as she clicked through her slides in a final rehearsal, she felt a surge of courage, knowing she was ready to confront the very heart of the resistance. The moment of reckoning loomed ahead, and she could hardly wait to seize it. Emma arrived at the boardroom early, a stark contrast to the bustling environment around the hospital. The quiet moment allowed her to collect her thoughts, but it also amplified her anxiety. She had an arsenal of data prepared, patient testimonials, outcome statistics, the support of colleagues, but the weight of the upcoming presentation loomed heavily over her. The board members began to filter in, their expressions ranging from curious to indifferent. Emma took a deep breath, reminding herself of the small victories she had achieved over the last few weeks. The conversations with her colleagues had not just informed her proposal, they had also etched a path forward, a reflection of her rising assertiveness. But the surreal feeling of being on the precipice of something monumental fueled both her excitement and dread. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. "Today I want to discuss an initiative that I believe will significantly enhance patient care at our hospital." As she moved through her slides, she showcased not only statistics, but also real stories, patients whose voices echoed through the data she had gathered. The room slowly shifted, shoulders began to relax, and a few nods of recognition flickered among her audience. Emma leaned into her passion, sharing how patient-centered care could lead to improved outcomes, both for the patients and for the healthcare providers. But just as she captivated her audience with her fervor, a familiar interruption cut through the atmosphere. "Emma," Tom interjected, "do you truly think patients have the capacity to understand their complexities? Relying on their inputs could bring more complications than solutions." His words sparked an internal storm. Emma's heart raced. She had anticipated resistance, but not the direct challenge to her very foundation. "Tom," she replied, keeping her voice calm and confident, "complicated doesn't mean detrimental. Our goal should be to empower our patients, not to dismiss them. They know their experiences best." A silence hung in the air, heavy with tension, and she sensed skepticism linger behind Tom's steely gaze. Yet, for every challenge, a seed of curiosity began to sprout within the others present. More questions arose. How could they integrate patient feedback without overwhelming their already strained processes? Emma seized the opportunity to address each query, outlining practical methods to implement a feedback loop that respected patient autonomy while enhancing their efficiency. With each question answered, her initial nervousness transformed into a crucible of strength. She felt the tides turning. The skeptical expressions were softening. Emma moved beyond simply defending her proposal. She began to envision what success could look like, patients and professionals working collaboratively to create the best possible care environment. Finally, she reached the conclusion of her presentation, her heart pounding with anticipation and trepidation. "I understand that change takes time, and it requires dedication from all of us. But the reward, improved patient care and satisfaction, a kinder healthcare environment, will ultimately reflect our growth as individuals and as a community." As applause erupted in the room, Emma felt a sense of validation she had long craved. Yet just as she relaxed, Dr. Martinez raised his hand to speak. "While I'm impressed by the proposal, we must consider the impending budget cuts. How will we fund this initiative?" His question hung in the air as reality crashed back in. The practicalities of carrying a vision into fruition still loomed large, and Emma suddenly feared that all she'd accomplished could crumble within the harsh light of finances. Determination surged again. She could take this momentum and transform the practicality into creativity. As she stood there, ready to think on her feet, Emma realized this was yet another crucible moment for her development. This was about more than just a proposal. It was about leading the charge against a system resistant to change, about pushing through the barriers with strategic ingenuity. And just as the session began to shift into discussions on logistics, Emma knew she was on the brink of a new challenge, one that would test not just her advocacy, but also her ability to innovate under pressure. Would she be prepared to think outside the box when the stakes were at their highest? Emma's mind raced as waves of uncertainty crashed against her confidence. Dr. Martinez's inquiry laid bare the stark economic realities she needed to confront, transforming her moment of victory into an urgent dilemma. Could she champion her vision despite the looming budget cuts, or would her aspirations drown in fiscal constraints? Gathering her thoughts, Emma realized she needed to pivot. The room was charged, and time was limited. Funding this initiative won't just come from reallocating existing budgets. It's about demonstrating how our changes can lead to cost savings in the long term. She scanned the board members, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. Emma had prepared for this moment, yet still felt as if she were stepping onto a tightrope without a safety net. "We're not asking for an open-ended investment," she continued, her voice steadier now. "With better patient outcomes, we can reduce readmissions, cut costs in emergency care, and improve overall hospital efficiency. An initial investment leads to savings, impacting our bottom line positively." As she spoke, a flicker of recognition crossed several faces. Emma knew she had struck a chord with those in the room. "I can provide a detailed breakdown of potential savings achieved through a pilot program," she added, her strategic mind racing to refine her proposal on the spot. Options began to crystallize. Perhaps they could explore partnerships with tech companies to embed patient feedback systems without large overhead costs, or seek grants focused on innovative healthcare solutions. Tom's skepticism did not retreat, however. "But Emma, won't the implementation add extra burden on our already stretched staff? Who's going to do the work?" His words jabbed at her confidence, yet they also ignited a fierce resolve. "Tom, transforming our approach doesn't always mean adding to the workload. It can transform how we work. Empowering staff through new systems and strategies will ultimately lighten their load, allowing them more time to focus directly on patient care." The board's silence deepened. She sensed they were contemplating this new perspective. Yet doubts still swirled in her mind. Why had she allowed herself to wade into uncertain waters driven by sheer enthusiasm? Instinctively she clutched her notepad, drawing calming breaths as she steadied herself. It was a moment of introspection. She could sink back into fear of failure, or she could dive deeper into her convictions and rise above the challenges. "I appreciate all your concerns," Emma said, allowing a brief pause to intentionally enhance her connection with the audience. "It's important we forge a plan that addresses both patient needs and staff well-being. I propose we convene a task force, composed of nurses, physicians, and administrative staff, to collaborate on creating a collaborative care model, one that alleviates the burden rather than increasing it." Miraculously, this suggestion seemed to break through the barriers. A few murmurs of agreement emerged as heads began to nod. For the first time since beginning her presentation, optimism seeped back into the room. Emma seized the moment, feeling the tide shift. As the meeting drew to a close, she felt exhilaration intertwining with her anxiety. While she left with a renewed commitment, the question of how to bring this vision into reality weighed heavily on her shoulders. She needed to ensure that their next steps were concrete, attainable, and financially sound. Her confidence had initiated dialogue, but now she had to construct a pathway. Days passed since the boardroom discussion, and Emma dove deep into research about funding opportunities and efficient models of collaborative care. Yet, amid the spreadsheets and proposals, a creeping sense of dread lingered. How would she balance her roles as an innovator and a leader without burning out? Emma often found herself awake at night, envisioning the potential of her proposal alongside her mounting doubts. Was she ready to navigate this uncharted territory not only for her patients, but also for herself? Exhaustion chased clarity, leaving her questioning her resolve just as much as she believed in her mission. In those solitary hours, beneath the harsh light of her desk lamp, she began to explore not just the solutions available to her vision, but the very nature of her capabilities. The struggle wasn't just about patient care, it was about redefining her identity within the complex tapestry of the healthcare system. One night, a breakthrough struck as she jotted down a list of stakeholders she could reach out to, internal and external, who had successfully navigated similar challenges. It was time to step out of her comfort zone. She realized she had to build a coalition, not just a campaign, and her journey to success rested on collaboration. As she crafted emails and outreach plans, a realization settled deep within her mindset. Could she rally this support while gambling her own growth? The horizon glimmered ahead, but it came with its own set of risks. and with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, she pressed send on her first outreach email, feeling the weight of potential companions materializing in her descent down this unexplored path. In that instant, she wondered, would alliances create new opportunities, or would they leave her more vulnerable than she had ever been? The early morning light filtered through Emma's kitchen window, illuminating the faint outlines of her ambitious plans scattered across the table. Each document held the weight of her aspirations, promising change, yet also leaving her with an unsettling knot in her stomach. The decision she faced now felt monumental. Did asking for help mean admitting weakness, or could it be the smart, strategic move she desperately needed? Coffee brewed in the background, its rich aroma contrasting sharply with her unease. As she waited for the steaming cup to finish, Emma's mind drifted to the faces she'd seen at the board meeting. The glimmers of hope and skepticism had revealed the complexities she needed to navigate. Building coalitions was not just about gaining support. It was about tapping into shared frustrations and aspirations, a complex web of emotions her analytical mind struggled to balance. A disturbing thought crossed her mind. What if none of her efforts led to the change she envisioned? It hung there, heavy and suffocating. Last night had been a small victory, but defeats loomed just beyond the horizon. Did she even have the capacity to lead this initiative when it threatened to overwhelm her? The hiss of the coffee maker drew her back. She poured herself a cup, cradling it between her hands. Reflecting on the alliances she aimed to build, she decided to reach out to Leslie, a bright and capable nurse who had always had innovative ideas of her own. In their first conversation, she envisioned an energetic exchange, a merging of visions. But in her heart, doubt lingered. Would inviting someone else into her space broaden her horizons or compromise her authority? Emma pulled her laptop into focus. She began to craft an email to Leslie, laying out her vision while interspersing it with genuine requests for insight. It was surprisingly liberating to admit that she didn't have all the answers. Each keystroke was a reminder of her commitment to this path, igniting sparks of creativity that had felt dimmed by uncertainty. The best ideas often evolve collaboratively, she typed, reassuring herself as much as Leslie. After finalizing the email, she clicked send with a sense of determination, but then the moment wobbled as self-doubt crept in. Who was she to ask others to join her venture? What if they rejected her plea completely? Anxiety roiled in her stomach. Determined to combat this feeling, Emma made a list of her strengths: her intrinsic motivation, resilience under pressure, and the ability to communicate effectively. These were not attributes she could dismiss. They represented the core of her identity. Identifying them felt like anchoring herself in a storm, yet every wave of uncertainty also triggered a realization. She needed to confront her demons, especially the fear of inadequacy. As days passed, Emma plunged into meetings, networking events, and online forums, seeking collaborative partners for her ambitious initiative. Each interaction served to expand her understanding of what others in the field were facing. In one particularly stirring seminar, she listened as a leading healthcare strategist analyzed a successful pilot program that sounded almost identical to her vision, but with the collaborative care model firmly embedded. It was invigorating, yet frightening. Later that week, in a moment of introspection, she confronted her discomfort with strong emotions flooding her mind. What if her vision was imperfect? What if others didn't recognize its merit? This was more than just a proposal. It was a reflection of her evolving self. She could no longer segregate her career ambitions from her vulnerability. Riding this wave of revelation, she called a last-minute meeting with the task force she had proposed to the board. Facing the core group of nurses, physicians, and administrative staff, Emma felt a rush of adrenaline as they gathered around her table. Their faces wore varied expressions: curiosity, apprehension, and a hint of skepticism. Was she prepared to defend her vision, or 3 steps ahead in crafting a dialogue to address their concerns? The meeting proved an important turning point. As members spoke, Emma listened intently, finding ways to integrate their insights into her proposal, creating a richer tapestry of ideas. Gradually, her anxiety morphed into enthusiasm. With collective brainstorming, their discomfort began to dissipate, replaced with tangible excitement. The momentum was building, yet she remained aware of the precariousness of it all. Had they sincerely rallied behind her vision, or were they merely being polite? With that thought lurking like a shadow, Emma leaned into her preparation for the follow-up presentations. She would confront challenges to her approach head-on, but secretly, she longed for her vision to resonate with those around her. And as she closed her notebook that evening, a question lingered in her mind. Would her growing confidence hold firm when faced with the inevitable challenges ahead? She would soon find out, but she could not shake the feeling that the real test was just beginning. Emma stood at the podium, her heart racing as she faced an audience that had grown from a handful of skeptical colleagues to an assembly of hospital leaders and staff gathered to discuss the future of patient advocacy. The energy in the room felt electric, a mixture of curiosity and concern that reflected the multifaceted dynamics at play within the hospital's culture. She exhaled deeply, her fingers gripping the edges of the podium. "Thank you all for being here," Emma began, her voice resonating with newfound confidence. "Today, I want to share our next steps in implementing the patient advocacy program, emphasizing the power of collective voices in shaping our healthcare model." As she spoke, Emma watched the expressions of her audience shift, gradually moving from uncertainty to intrigue. She highlighted how small, actionable steps could lead to transformative change, not just for patients, but for staff as well. Armed with data from her previous research, she emphasized the benefits of collaboration, enhanced patient satisfaction, improved outcomes, and ultimately, a reduction in costs. By embedding patient feedback into our care model, we aren't just complying with a trend, we're actively creating an environment where patients feel heard and involved, she insisted, her passion spilling into every word. Midway through her presentation, one of the senior doctors, Dr. Lawson, who had previously maintained a critical stance, raised his hand, his brow furrowed. "Emma, what about staff workloads? If we're to integrate this feedback effectively, it could potentially overwhelm our already stretched resources." Emma was ready for the challenge. "Dr. Lawson, that's a valid concern," she acknowledged, sensing the tension in the room. "However, part of our strategy includes designing user-friendly processes that empower both patients and staff alike. For instance, we can utilize digital platforms to collect and analyze feedback efficiently, ensuring it doesn't add to your burden. We'll establish a task force that includes healthcare professionals from all levels to maintain balance in our approach." She sensed the air shift as murmurs of agreement rippled through her audience. The preparation she had dedicated to anticipating obstacles was paying off, and she shared anecdotal evidence of other successful models to reinforce her point. Each statistic carried with it the weight of her own journey, one driven by empathy and fueled by determination. As she neared the conclusion of her presentation, a dawning realization washed over her. This was about more than just a program, it was her own metamorphosis. Emma had transformed from an exhausted nurse questioning her worth to an advocate with a solid vision, striving not only for recognition but for genuine change in the lives of others. Stepping away from the podium, she gestured for questions, fully engaged with her audience as excitement crackled in the air. One raised hand belonged to Leslie, her ally who had previously joined the advisory effort. "Emma," she asked with a spirit of camaraderie, "how do you intend to measure the success of our initiative?" Emma faced her with a smile. "We will begin by establishing clear metrics, such as patient engagement levels, satisfaction ratings, and qualitative feedback. An evolving feedback loop will help us adjust our strategies as needed. The success of this program hinges not only on implementation, but also on reflection and adaptation." The audience nodded, voices rising in support, and for the first time, Emma could see the collective vision taking root. After the meeting, discussions erupted, filled with ideas from colleagues eager to contribute. She felt a wave of pride swell within her. She had come to realize that she was not only leading a project, but also inspiring her peers to become champions of change. Weeks passed, and as the advocacy program began to unfold, Emma witnessed a palpable shift in the hospital's culture. Medication rounds transformed into collaborative care discussions, where nurses and doctors sought input from their patients, weaving their feedback into daily practices. In tandem, Emma's professional growth solidified her standing within the hospital. She had transitioned from a reluctant participant to a competent leader, earning respect from peers who once viewed her initiative as an uphill battle. Recognition came in the form of an award during the annual hospital gala, where she stood before a crowd beaming with pride as she accepted accolades not just for her advocacy, but for the collective achievements of her team. As Emma stepped off the stage, accolades in hand, she felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The quiet fears that once haunted her now felt like distant echoes, replaced by the confidence forged in the fires of confrontation and collaboration. She achieved a deep acknowledgement of her own worth, intertwined with the realization that true fulfillment lies in elevating the voices of others. With this evolution, she felt ready to confront new challenges, emboldened by the impact she had made on patient care. Emma had proven to herself that she was indeed enough, not just as a nurse, but as a leader capable of fostering change. It was a defining moment in her professional journey, one that she knew would continue to ripple outward, inspiring others to rise and advocate for what truly mattered. Now, as she stepped out into the sunlit hallway, the hospital buzzed with activity reflective of a new life being breathed into its very core. Igniting hope was no longer just a concept, it had become her reality. Don't wait a moment longer. You need to subscribe now to the channel to witness more extraordinary stories of personal transformation. Leave a like now to boost our message and spread awareness. This matters. Comment below your thoughts and theories about Emma's journey and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to know that change is possible. Your support makes all the difference. Show it now.